Good morning. Welcome back. So glad to be back. Uh, I'm going to apologize for something you don't care about. It's a little later than usual. It's actually after 5 a.m. this morning already. Oh my gosh, I'm not going to be done till 7. I like to be done before the world wakes up. I just wanted to sleep this morning. And tomorrow, I don't think I'm going to do a show tomorrow because I think we need to go out and play golf again, and we need to get out of here by a little after 6, and that doesn't really give me time to do a show. So, in advance, I apologize. I don't think there's going to be a show posted tomorrow. um, so, let's get started. That's enough for the admin. Let's see if I can find my footing. Who am I? Who am I? Where are we going? Why are we here? What would be the object of the exercise? How does the equipment work? What is this medium that I am embedded in, that I abide in, that I am made of? Who am I? Who am I? On how many different levels can I even ask that question? Individually, collectively, there's so many different ways to ask the question, who am I? And what's my objective? Well, let's go back to the object of the exercise because I think that actually makes a lot of difference. How you see the object of life's exercise is everything to how your formula works out. Because your brain is absolutely a computer. And there is an aspect of it that is absolutely correct. But it all depends on the things like the primary assumptions that you're plugging in at the top, how it's running the data. For instance, I keep pointing this out, and it's kind of weird that I look at so much Hitler stuff because Hitler was like an extreme example of a scenario, an energy. There was a rawness about that whole thing, the way that went down. Mostly because humanity was completely naive and assumed some things about goodness and God and guardrails that exist within the universe that don't actually exist. That it's all so up to us to choose, and we can choose anything from the highest of light to the lowest of dark, and that's all true. On the other hand, there is another truth, a bigger one that grounds the other one, and that is that the whole thing is grounded in love and wholeness and purpose and all that kind of stuff. So you don't really have to worry. But if you want to worry yourself right into the darkness, it's sitting right there. And we let it happen back in the Second World War because nobody really had any sense that the darkness could get that bad. And it really can, but I don't focus there. I just have somewhere inside of me, there is an awareness that you can't take these things for granted. You really can't take them for granted. You've got to be vigilant, but vigilant in a positive way, not vigilant in a I'll be watching for that negative thought. I'm going to make sure that negative thing doesn't happen. Not that kind of vigilant. You have to be vigilant in the sense that when you really understand how this positive and negative thing works and who you really are as a being, as an intentional form, who you are and what kinds of power you do have, once you start focusing that direction, once you start realizing that that's the way it's designed, and then you also realize that you can't take certain things for granted, then you just make sure that you keep your eyes on the positive. Because over there your side view, you recognize that it's not news to you that human beings can be bad. Don't let that be news to you. Don't let it throw you off. And when it comes to anybody, not even yourself or your people you deeply trust, which, by the way, everybody that I deeply trust, you can get to a place where you oh, actually, I'm getting off into the weeds so bad. So bad. And I'm not really saying anything personally about anybody personally. What I was going to say is, if somebody comes up and says, "Oh, did you know that such and such horrible, terrible thing happened?" Doesn't that just throw you off your game? Doesn't that just undercut the goodness that you think the world is? And don't let it do that, ever. Because the news of the bad shouldn't be anything that takes you off your recognition of the good. That's maybe what I'm saying. So bad exists. Big deal. As it would, because misalignment, when you don't understand your own equipment and get crosswise with it, get misaligned with your own equipment and the framework that you are that your life exists within. Maybe that's a way to say it, but it's more than that, because you don't just exist within this matrix. You are this matrix. You're made of this matrix. Your atoms are made of Plancks. The Plancks are what make the world up. It's this very, very, very fine-grained ether, this fluid plasma that the entire universe is made up of. And it's holographic, and it's fractal, and it's black holes all the way up. It's nested doll, Russian doll universe, nested smaller and larger scales of data and information flow. That's what the whole thing is, and you are it too. You are part of this. Your intention, your soul, the fact that you are at the helm of an individuation gives you a certain amount of autonomous control over the only thing you have control over, and the only thing you need to have control over, which is your own position. It's the only thing you have control over, and you have magnificent control over it. You have way more control over it, perhaps, than you're giving it credit for, because you think you need to have control over the overarching manifestation around you. Which, on the one hand, you are going to gain some physical control over the overarching area around you, but it's not because you have control over that area and you're exerting that control. It's because you have control over your own position, and you have the absolute freedom to move your vehicle anywhere in the universe that you want to go. Now, you may have ideas from your physical mind, from the outside, where you want to go in physicality, and you're trying to make that happen from the outside, but you've got to know that this is an inside job, and you have to do it spirit first. You have to do it vibrationally, feeling your way forward, not physical mind propelling you forward to places that your physical mind has drummed up for you. Now, where we get into trouble well, that's probably a bad way to preamble that. But the thing is, the physical mind wants to propel you forward. It wants to think of it. It wants to do it. You got to know that you're going on an inferior trail if you allow your physical mind to lead the way. Now, I'll tell you where you can get your meat and potatoes for the fix for the mind, and because it wants to be in on it, it wants to think, it wants to be highly involved in this complexity of the world. And it's capable of doing that, and you should let it do that, but you got to understand its place. Don't let it lead the way. Let it follow and understand as it goes. Ooh, I see what's happening. Ooh, look at that. Ooh. Oh, isn't that interesting how that fits together? Oh, I'm starting to get a picture. Oh, yeah, okay, I see. All right, let me just keep following. Let me keep watching. Let me keep looking and learning. And that is the role of the physical mind. And when it takes that role, the role as the servant instead of the master, then all of a sudden it's brilliant and it's a genius in some places. You're not going to be a genius in every place. You're going to find that you're a genius at something. And you don't have to be a genius at everything, because you're just going to take that one thing that you love, that you're good at, that you're a genius at, and you're just going to go focus there. And you're not going to worry about the rest of the world going to hell, because we're going to be fine if everybody would just follow that formula. Just find what they love, find what they're good at, focus on it, and not worry about the rest. Let the physical mind allow and follow, and then understand from that position, and then from that increasing understanding, get better and better at following the lead of your inner spirit, your inner being, who knows who you are and what you want and where you're going, or at least where you would like to go. She knows you. She is you. She is you, people. It's one of the reasons I put up this particular slide this morning. I have a set of several of these. 4 of them are female, and 1 of them is a little boy. And then I have some older people, some grown-ups, in some. So let me show them to you. I like these. There's this one. This one reminds me of. This one spoke to me when I was 12 years old. My family moved us to Nairobi, Kenya. And although I had grown up with a very, very large extended family, there was 8 of us. There was 8 children. There was 4 of my direct siblings, and then 4 of my first cousins, because their mother got very terribly sick from lupus and died, and their father really he wouldn't have been a good person to leave all those kids with. They would have just they'd turned into monkeys. So my mother took them all in, and it probably cost her marriage, because my dad, although he was in it in a way, he loved us and he did his duty and he was magnificent. He was he worked for the Forest Service, and my mother was a school teacher. And so they weren't merchants or entrepreneurs of any sort. Their task in life was never to make money, and I always admired them for that. And I thought it was very, very special and privileged to have been raised in an American non-merchant household, because they illustrated something else to me, which was they did what they did because they loved what they did. My mother was the best dang school teacher. She was so good. She was so good. She loved that early childhood development time period. She just loved it. And she was so good with the children, thinking of wonderful, fun things to do and how to look at the world, and get the kids' attention and interest, and start pointing to them out things in nature, and oh, she was so wonderful. I would give anything if she was here. I would love to have her back, and I'd love to point her at Rowan. Oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say any actual names. Although the people who know me, they know who. I'm not hiding. I'm not. I just, my individual self, I don't want to put it as the first thing forward in this show. The who am I want to emphasize in this show is more my spirit, not my individual ego identity on this planet. Although I'm not putting my ego identity down. I am the personality that I am. I am who I am. I have to ride this. I have to have a vehicle to ride through this world in. I think of the ego as just, it's my physical mind is all, and your physical mind is perfectly delightful and wonderful, and extremely valuable to your equipment system, but it's a secondary organ. It thinks it's running the show. That was from Joseph Campbell. It's a secondary organ, and it thinks it's running the show. Just have it put in the secondary position, and then all of a sudden it's beautiful, it's blessed, it's perfect. It's not out of alignment at all. Just know that your source mind is the one that should be leading the way. And who is your source mind? Well, I don't know how to really explain it because I only understand it to a point myself, you know, to the same kind of point that you can understand. And I'm sure you can get deeper and deeper and deeper into this, but the general structure is you are two minds. And one of them is your overview. Some people, they start calling it things like an oversoul, and I'm not going to disagree with that, but it's not just a soul, it's a view. It's showing you a view. It knows the way. And what is the way? I'm air quoting the way. What is the way? Well, it's your path, whatever that is, and that is the steps you're going to take in your life. What are those going to be? How can I know where I'm going, or how to step my steps? Well, the way you can know is how you feel, because your feelings are actually a read on the validity of your thoughts. Did you know that? When your thoughts about things are negative, that's an indication that it's actually not a thought in alignment with what your inner being's thinking about it. Now, there may or may not be any truth to it. You know, you can say things like, Hitler is a monster. And in a way, that kind of makes you feel creepy. Actually, it would make you feel creepier if I told you that Hitler wasn't a monster. Hitler was a monster. There is a perspective. I'm not going to argue with that one. As a matter of fact, it's such a landmine. It's such a beautiful, huge collective illustration of different principles and different things that happen from misalignment. But people, instead of looking at the psychology or focusing on the psychology without judgment to him, you know, the judgment to him always comes from when you think about all the suffering. Oh my gosh, the suffering that came from his misalignment is just breathtaking. And the terrible acts and deeds, and then the desperate. It was just a terrible thing all the way around. And it should be acknowledged that we should never, ever, 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 ever let that happen again. But you know what happened? The German people, they let that happen because they did not understand what they were looking at. And I'm not just going to say the German people. I'm just going to say people looking at that. Now, it was only the Germans themselves that were as capable of, because they're the ones who elected him, you know, they are the ones who gave him power over their country, you know. Hindenburg was a conservative, and he saw a Hitler regime as more favorable of a thing than a return to something like the Weimar Republic. You know, that was all crazy town. Everybody doing what they want to do. They were dancing with hardly any clothes on. Homosexuals were free to do what they wanted. Cabarets were booming. Everybody was having a good time. You know, yeah, okay, it was a little frenetic, and it wasn't stable in its economic structure. That was another one of the stability. Germany was also still groaning under the weight of the aftermath of the First World War. And you might say, well, why Germany more than the rest of the world? Didn't we all? Yeah, but Germany was stuck with the bill. The world decided, well, so Germany surrendered. And so then the Allies, the people who were fighting Germany, say, ha ha ha, we won, you lost. You are at fault. We're sticking you with the bill for the whole First World War. And so they had a much harder time in the early 20s than we had in the 20s. You know, we get to walk away. Our country has not been affected in any way because there was nothing that happened on American soil. You know, we've stuck them with the bill. We get on with it. We've got this whole enormous continent, new continent to draw from, resources and all kinds of stuff. We're just getting started. And so we have a much easier time. They had a rougher time. What with things like hyperinflation, where overnight their currency was losing so much value that you work your job, by the time you got paid, the money that you had agreed to be paid wasn't worth anything. You know, people were taking, so the government was just printing more, and then people were, you know, taking wheelbarrow loads of money to pay for a loaf of bread, or whatever the story is. It's something like that. Anyway, they had a whole different thing that happened, and they were the ones that could have not elected him. I have digressed. I do remember my point. My point is when we become a people who understand alignment and misalignment, we will never, ever, ever again elect a leader so obviously in misalignment. How can you know he was in misalignment? It was easy. Listen to any speech he ever made. He was so about the us versus them. Us versus them. That's your first clue, because there is no us versus them. It's all us. And then actually, if you get really advanced and really, 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 really into it, you realize that there isn't anything but you. It's only you, you know? And from your perspective, it you can operate as though it is exactly that. It's just you, because the whole universe is nothing but a mirror. It's a mirror, a kind of a mirror, of really highly complex fractal holographic mirror matrix thing. It's really cool. The universe is really, really cool. And the fact that we are embedded in an allness, an almighty, it's the God thing that we're all a part of. This inner being that you are inextricably melded to throughout all eternity. And isn't it wonderful? Because this inner being of yours is in touch with all things and knows the wellness and the appropriateness and the coolness and the okayness of all things. Knows that it's all right. That we are all right, and it's gonna be all right. And even if it's a little bumpy here and there, that love is the only important thing. Love is the eye to our soul. Love is the eye to our soul. When you love something, you see it fully. And it lights up a part of you. As a matter of fact, if you did it in complete and utter perfect alignment, you're lighting up your area of the grid, and your love for everything around you helps you light up the area of the grid that they're on. And when the whole thing is nothing but light and you can see everybody's position, then you're in the pinnacle of the Almighty's perspective, you know? And it is this position, this perspective of the allness resides within you. If you go deep within the center of the center of the center of the center of your center, as you lock into the data fields that lie within your own spirit, you lock on to these views, and you can actually find that place within you. It is possible to find that place where the whole thing lights up. That's seeing through the eyes of Source. And that's seeing, but you probably can't see it in its full. I'm sure you can't see it in its fullness until you're non-physical. Until you're non-physical too, because only then can you feel where all the atoms actually are, where how the blood is flowing and the wind is blowing, and all of the details of the bugs in the grasses and the birds in the trees and all of the different planets and the galaxies. And the only way you can feel all of it would be from a non-physical perspective. From a physical perspective, you've decided to go specific. And so that's what you're doing. As you've decided to live in a physical body, you've decided to be specific, and you're specializing. You're out there on a piece of the grid, lighting it up for the wholeness to see the whole thing. And you are important. Every single point of this quilt of reality is important. You're important to the wholeness. Everyone is required. Can subtract nothing. You can subtract nothing from this equation. That's how important you are. And so we just are tasked to find our way. And how do we find our way? Well, I like to back everybody up to the position of, hey, this is who we are. This is how our mechanism works. Now that you know how the mechanism works, go forth and work it. Go forth and live your physical life and try to fly your starship of light through the labyrinth of your own life, because that's the one thing you have absolute control over. You have absolute control over your own self. Are you exercising control over your own self, or are you letting the physical conditions around you dictate who you are? When they're bad, you're a monster. When they're good, you're an angel. When things aren't going well, you fall into a puddle of whatever. And then if they are going well, now you're bouncing off the walls, euphoric. Don't let the environment control who you are. You can step apart from the environment in order to engage more fully and more intelligently and more consciously with the environment. You do not have to let the environment toss you about like a shell on the edge of the sea, in the surf, like a shell in the surf. You do not have to let the environment throw you around like that. But you can be engaged in life, As a matter of fact, I would recommend that you be engaged in life because life needs you to be engaged in life. Just know who you are as you engage. Who am I? Well, you are a two-pronged being. You are a binary system. You are a physical self, that physical self that you know of. And then you have a vibrational aspect. And I would say you have a vibrational aspect, but it's actually more accurate to say that your vibrational aspect has a physical aspect, and that's you. And the reason I say it that way is because the physical aspect of you is what's expirational. Your permanent aspect, your vibrational aspect does not expire. When your body made of meat, when your meat vehicle, when your HBV, your human being vehicle, when you lay it down, your non-physical self is the one that keeps going. It is the continuum of, it's like the program, but it's not a program, it's you. It's the culmination, it's the continuum, the culmination and continuum. So I just did a timeline thing. I'm going from the past, the culmination, get to where I am in the present moment, continuum, moving to the right. Anyway, I'm just doing a little thing. You can't see me doing it. It's too early in the morning to turn the webcam on. It's the continuum that is you, the continuum of desire and intention and intelligence and consciousness and awareness and connection to all things. That's what continues. And it doesn't just continue, it doesn't begin when you die. It's with you right now. And when you die, then that's who you are. Until you decide to come into another body, because you aren't forced to do this. It's not like the Buddhists say, until you're freed from this agony and suffering. It's not really like that. From non-physical, you don't have to choose to come back, but you find that you want to, because this is where it's happening. This is the leading edge. And I'm not talking about, sometimes I think that in Abraham's audiences, when she says this is the leading edge, she thinks that they're all sitting in there with their egos smugly smiling, going, yeah, we're on the leading edge conversation. Well, yeah. And that's true. It is. But the leading edge she's really talking about is physicality itself. The rolling manifestation, this world of flux and form. This is the leading edge. This is what the vibrational set are interested in. It's what everybody's interested in. Where the world of form is becoming. The edge where vibrations are turning into things, into form. The world of rolling flux and form. That's the leading edge, and that's where everything is. You come out and you see, well, that's where the physical is, out here where it's physical. It turns out that's where the non-physical is too. Because that's where it's interesting. As the world of reality becomes reality, it becomes and it begoes. Both. It's the fifth law of the universe. Everything changes except for the laws. There's nothing you can do to change that. And so isn't it interesting? It's why you can't identify with anything in the world of form, because ultimately you are not form. You are the formless. And so you have to identify with the formless and then know, oh, I am formless, wearing form. I am formless, becoming form. Because my form is made of the formless. What do I mean? It's made of Plancks. It's made of these frequencies that at their base level, at their 0 point level, aren't really anything. They're a Dirac sea of fluxing foam, the Plancks, the quantum field. That's what you are. So you are the formless, and your intention brings form into motion, into being, actually. You are and how does it happen? Well, the universe is vibrational, and vibrations become things. They're vibrational first, and then as it's focused upon, that the momentum of that vibration starts becoming more and more steady until it holds. And then now it starts becoming, and now you can see it. And then there it is, and we're all experiencing it. And then we're focusing on other things, and that thing that we were experiencing a minute ago starts to pass away. And that's just the way it works. And it is our intention that's doing it. It's our focus, it's our attention. You're so much more powerful than you believe that you are. And the focus of your attention, so just kind of close your eyes and make all of the details of your physical reality around you go away for a minute, because in a way they don't matter. There's so much possibility, and it's moving. It's a moving target also. So recognize that the exact state that it is in this moment doesn't really matter, because it's on the move, you know? So how do you get it to move in the direction of what you don't want it to be? Well, you might think, well, I have to, with my physical mind, recognize exactly what I want, and then put it together with my physical mind, and then move that direction intentionally. And to some extent, that is true. To only some extent is that true. In actual fact, you are a tandem mind, and if you are one of those people who just wants to jump into action so fast, then you have to understand that it is really, really, really important for you to do this in alignment with your inner being. And it's not just move into action so fast. I know somebody who wants to move into action so fast, and on the other hand, her mind is so mercurial quick. She's so smart, and her physical mind is on so much of it that she has a hard time getting her physical mind out of the way if, for some reason, it starts on a negative momentum. You do not want your physical mind to be in the negative places. Now, your heart can feel things that ache for a minute. It's true. It's absolutely true. But you don't want to let your physical mind get a hold of a negative momentum thread and go running with it, especially if your mind is quick. Because your mind is not designed to be negative. Your mind is not designed to run negative. It's designed to briefly hit a negative and then immediately recognize, oh, guidance, and readjust. If you have someone who locks on to the negative and runs with it, that is textbook out of alignment. And you should never elect them to public office. Never elect them to public office. Anyone who is in the us and them paradigm, fixed in the us and them paradigm, and then running with negative, anger, they're mad about things, someone is to blame, I'm gonna fix it, that kind of energy, don't ever elect that person, because they are out of alignment. And when we come to understand our alignment and what it really means, how our equipment actually works, how to be supremely successful at whatever your actual heart desires, we will understand very innately. There will never be a problem with that. We will never elect someone like that again, because we will understand, they're going to lead us 180 degrees fast in the direction that we all do not want to go. And if that isn't a perfect description of what Hitler did to his people, moved them quickly 180 degrees in the opposite direction of where they wanted to go, of where they truly wanted to go. Now, for a minute, it looked okay because he had them all moving in the same direction, and everybody got to work. Everybody with their own hands started building the Autobahn. Everybody just went back to work. Everything, because Hitler said so. That's why they went back to work. Now, if we could all get back to work, that'd be great. If we could every single one of us, get on with self-directed, satisfying work immediately, well, the world would be fixed. The thing is so the reason that it looked like it happened so quickly is because everybody agreed for a minute to follow his direction. Now, I might say that some things were good, but I think it was probably bad in some ways from the get-go, because the whole engine that the dang thing ran on was this anti-Semitism, the fact that there was someone to blame for our problems was the engine that the whole thing ran on. And so for some people, even when the trains ran on time and all the Germans went back to work, it wasn't a picnic for certain citizens of the Reich, even at the beginning. So when I say it worked for a minute, I'm not really saying that the Reich worked for a minute. It didn't really. It never worked. It never worked. And the German people, are kind of responsible for that, because they elected that man and they did not recognize how deeply out of alignment his whole spiel was. That whole direction. When you think someone else is to blame, then you're out of alignment right there. Although I could sit from my overview place and go, oh, look at all these people who are to blame because they're out of alignment. You know, Hitler was to blame. But actually, he was out of alignment. His misalignment was to blame. When the whole German people agreed to buy into an us versus them paradigm, because he wrote Mein Kampf, My Struggles, and it was apparently, I've never read it. I have heard it described, what's in it, that it's rather a vile diatribe of grievances and blame and, anti-Semitic garbage. So, I don't really think I have to read it in order to kind of generally understand what's in there. But who he was not a secret, in spite of the fact that the propaganda that was put out by Goebbels, who was actually quite a genius at it, and he was using all the latest technology that was coming up in the early and mid 20th century, film and radio and airplanes, the Hitler over Germany thing. But anybody who wanted to look could have known easily. Just read Mein Kampf, and that was certainly, 6 million copies, I think. 6 million people read that thing, so it wasn't a secret. His us versus them position was not a secret, and all of them agreed to buy into that paradigm. And that is exactly why what happened to them. Now, unfortunately, it didn't just happen to them. It happened to the whole rest of the world. And hopefully we'll never do that one again. The way you can tell is you evaluate the situation by how aligned you think that person is. Not by how valuable or how worthy his soul is, or what position he plays in the... Now, we're not only all responsible for our own alignment and the recognition of... what was I going to say about this? Just because someone is really horribly, horribly out of alignment does not mean that they are not valuable to the situation. As a matter of fact, Hitler was the most valuable person in that situation from a particular perspective, because well, the whole illustration wouldn't have happened if he hadn't have been there at the top, at the center. But if he hadn't have been there, the thing is the energies are still what they are. We still need to understand this thing of alignment and misalignment. And we need to have a deep, deep, deep respect for how bad a simple thing like misalignment can be. And on the other hand, absolutely recognize the intrinsic value of the being who is trapped in their own misalignment. And don't lose track of that. Don't just say, don't discard the baby with the bathwater. Don't discard the soul trapped in the monster mechanism, trapped in the mechanism of their own negative mind, locked into a furious battle with the outside paradigm. You know, Hitler was in his own kind of hell. Now, of course, he had no appreciation for anybody else's suffering. Why should we, have any sympathy for him? In a way, I don't have any special sympathy for him. I have sympathy for everyone involved in the whole situation. The ones who went overtly evil, you have a tendency to want to not like those. But I'm gonna point out an interesting paradigm or story. Do you remember the Berkeley prison experiment? Happened in the early 70s. It was a psychological experiment, and the whole thing went so far south so quickly it shocked everybody. And I would suggest you go look into it. Actually, I haven't thought about this for a while. I can find a pretty succinct description of this. They got a bunch of students there at, I think it was Berkeley. Yeah, it was Berkeley. And they picked people for their emotional stability, for their ordinariness, for their lack of, and they didn't pick particularly they didn't pick outlaws or rebels or any particular kind. They were looking for, just regular, ordinary, nice people, students. They cast them in a pretend prison down in the basement somewhere, and they had it, and they cast guards and prisoners, and they sort of left the rules kind of open. What was weird is it did not take very long before the guards were abusing the prisoners and trying to get them to behave by acting in certain ways. It some of it echoed the kinds of things that came out. Remember, what was that scandal of in the American POW prisons? It was where the Americans were holding Al-Qaeda, or I don't know who all, and there was that one girl that was abusing the prisoners, and there was the pictures showing them, treating them like dogs, and the terrible, terrible stories of things that were happening in the prisons. Well, they didn't get that bad, but it got bad. And really quickly, they had to abort the whole experiment because of what happened with the energies. We've got to understand who we are and quit judging each other for the roles that they're playing, and just recognize that we are, first of all, we are a field phenomenon, which means that we are a wholeness. It's sort of like within the family unit, say you got a family energy dynamic going on, and one of the family members has to go to the psychiatrist because they are off the rails, man. We need an intervention. Send them to the shrink. Well, the psychiatrist knows immediately that it's not an isolated environment, that he can't just treat the patient. He's got to go look at the whole family dynamic because it's a field phenomenon. What's going on is it's something that's happening amongst all the family. Well, the family of man is a thing. We are a superorganism, like it or not. We have a supply chain, we have a circulation system of that supply chain, we have energy systems, communication systems, waste elimination systems. We are a superorganism, or at least we function as such on the planet, and so we might as well own it consciously. And I would think that from this perspective, the object of the exercise is sustainability. Let's make it to sustainability, people. I'm serious. And what is it that's keeping us from achieving sustainability? Well, part of it is we have not learned to recycle or our waste is still too toxic. We are not we're not eliminating our waste properly. That's one of the things. And our energy supply system actually it's our energy. Our energy is the problem, because if we could plug into clean, free energy, we could 100% recycle everything we need to recycle. Take it all the way down to useful elements that we could use doing something else. And so that's another one of our problems is our transportation system. But our transportation system is going to naturally morph once we discover new energy sources. A new way to fly those planes is going to involve different infrastructure at our new airports. And all of the fuel tanks and the fuelings and that fuel stuff is going to be different when our energy supply is coming from a different place. And I know that our future involves that. It just does. It has to. If it doesn't, we don't have a future. So our future involves it. So that's one thing. Our energy supply is a big deal. The way we manufacture goods, that's going to be another thing. Certain kinds of goods, we do not have to turn our truffula trees into thneeds, if you understand the reference. I didn't see the movie, but I did read the book. It's the Lorax, in case you didn't know. And go read the book, because it's a Dr. Seuss book, and it'll only take you 10 minutes, if that. Why do I say we don't have to manufacture our goods that way? Well, we don't, because if you understood how the matrix, how the formless turns into form, we could use that information in order to create goods just out of the ether. We can do that. I believe that extraterrestrials are already doing it, and it's the reason how come some of the alien artifacts that we have found, as in like their spaceships and stuff, why they seem to be made of metals of so much more purity, and we can't get into them with our diamond drill bits. You'll recognize that as a moment from the movie The Lost Century and How to Reclaim It. I have taken this movie into my consciousness, as I'm assuming that at least parts of it are largely true, that the essential aspects of it are true. The essential aspects of it being, we can make over Unity devices. They may not be easy, but they are possible. We've been being told that they're impossible. They're difficult, but they're not impossible. And the few that have been invented have been brutally quelched. Sometimes by our own government, our own patent office, CIA, FBI, for reasons of national security. Because boy, if that kind of technology got into the hands of the bad guys, then they could, just imagine what the next iteration of David Koresh holing up in his little Waco, what that's going to look like when he's got unlimited, clean, free energy and his little empire, he can fuel it, to the end of time. Well, they've got a point about that. We need to know who we are. If we're going to be trusted with clean, free energy anywhere, we've got to grow up. We've got to be responsible if we're going to have that kind of energy at our fingertips. It's true. Everybody's going to go off into the bushes and do their own little thing. They're not going to necessarily have to be linked back into the rest of the group because they're going to have their own energy source. Now, I think they're going to want to plug into the group because the group is going to have the mainstream supply chain of human goods, technologies, services, travel, communications, all the things that human beings are involved in and love. I think we can be trusted with the future, but we need to know who we are. So true. We need to know who we are. So who am I? I'm a binary being. I always come back to this. I harp on it. Someday it's probably going to be all I ever talk about. The inner being. Who is this inner being? This vibrational you that is you but not you. It's not you but not you. It's you but more than you. So it's all of you and more than that too. And you have access to it. The small you has access to this bigger you. Just know that you do. And now go forth and live your small life, your specific life, doing the best you can. Understand the rules of the game. The rules of the game, first of all, is that the form shifts and shifts and shifts and shifts and shifts and shifts and shifts. And you might identify some of the form with the love that you feel inside of your soul. And then when the form that you identify with that love passes away, you think the love is lost. But the love is never, ever, 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 ever lost. Because the love is the thing that is always, for always, for always, because the love is not coming from the outside thing. The love is coming from the identity that you gave it from inside of you. That love is coming from you. It is your and your ability to tap into it or not. When you turn in the direction of it, you tap into it. And depending on how you identify it in your physical mind, you're either shielding yourself or you're opening yourself to it, but it's all coming from you. And your physical mind is only your physical mind has the ability to either shield you from this stream of love or shield you from an awareness of that stream, or think thoughts that open up to that stream. and everything in between. All of the thoughts that you're thinking, they're either doing one or the other. They're opening or closing a connection between your two minds. You might stay in your physical mind and close off the other, your ability to hear your source singing to you. Hitler's problem was he could not hear his source singing to him, and all he could do, he was just staring at the physical world, at its mercy, thinking that he had to change conditions, and then he decided in his physical mind that those people were to blame. Don't ever fall for that. Don't ever fall for that. Anyone who tells you those people over there or that thing over there or that's to blame. Well, but then I'm going to tell you fossil fuels are to blame. Well, it might be a thing, but don't ever blame that. There is no person who's ever to blame. There is only one of us. And so we're all here to cooperate with one another, to love one another, to understand who we are, and to get on with playing with this clay of life. Which I'm going to add in a fresh idea. It's not fresh to the show because I shared it a few days ago, but I just said the words play and clay in the same sentence, so I gotta add it in. Bashar was talking the other day. I listened to one the other day where he was talking about your state of being is the only thing you need to worry about as you navigate your craft through your life. It's the one thing that is letting you move around the space, which is the only thing you have control over. You have control over your own navigation. The navigation of your light ship through the experience of your life. That's the one thing you have control over. And when you approach life with the energy of play, the material world achieves a more clay-like nature. It's more malleable. It's with the clay makes it so you can play with what you've got. Play with the setup, the situation, what you're doing with it. You want to play a business into place. Something physical and tactile that you can design, that you can play with. The play itself, the energy of play, makes the universe malleable. And when you approach the universe from a lower vibration, it has the appearance of, at least to your experience, the universe becomes rigid and stiff and immobile, doesn't move. When you get all serious, it gets all stiff. When you get playful, it gets very clay-like. And that's what Bashar means when he tells us. And there's a lot of people tell us this. And I've been saying this. I said it way before I ever met Bashar. I said it before I met Abraham, actually. That state of being is what mattered. It was the only thing that mattered. Because I had gotten a whiff of that as being the answer. Oh, it's not the outside world. It's not for us to go out and just change the outside world. It's for us to navigate our own ship into the waters that we prefer. And you have a right to do that. You have a right to guide your ship where you want to go. What you don't have a right to do is to reach out and force other people and things to be a certain way. You don't have a right to force them. But as you guide your ship, it turns out you have this magical ability to, the field around you starts cohering in your direction. And you don't have to force it. When you start forcing it, then you're off. When you are just navigating your own ship and recognizing how beautifully the field around you is responding to your energy. You know, that things that you really, really, really wanted are showing up at your door, you know, knocking on your door and saying, you know, you were right all along. I'm sorry for what an asshole I've been, you know, that kind of thing, and then just going off, and you're left scratching your head, going, "Wow, wow, that's cool." Your power is in your alignment, and you lose your power when you lose your alignment. Now you might say, "Well, Hitler had lots of power. Did he? Did he?" Did he? In the end, he had no power to make himself happy. He had no power to help his people be happy. He did not achieve one single thing that he claimed that he was out to do. You know, found a 1,000-year Reich of stability and happiness for the German people. He didn't do any of that. He brought the entire world to its knees. Was probably directly and indirectly responsible for tens of millions of people dying. You know, from all the Russians who died, to all the Germans who died, to all the Jews who died, to all of the everybody else who died. He started that into motion. Now, he didn't really start it into motion. He flowed directly from World War I. And he didn't start World War I. You know, the world has been in change for a while, and not all of the change brought about by the wars was bad. As a matter of fact, they kind of had to happen. There were so many parts of our society that were rigid and unconscious, and that needed to be broken out. I wonder if I'm on the right wavelength, whether anybody's going to hear what I'm saying. So, like, go binge watch Downton Abbey. This is a good place to do it. Go binge watch Downton Abbey, and you'll see how the world changes from the beginning of that show to the end of that show. You know, how the servants are there was a pretty strict caste system going on in Europe, redeveloped after the founding of America and stuff. In England, a very strict caste system, and if you were born into the servant class, you pretty much died in the servant class, and you didn't have any options. You didn't have the option necessarily to become a shopkeeper or to become. There was all kinds of things. Colored people. I'm sorry, I don't mean to use that. That's a terrible. People of color did not have opportunities. They were locked into their roles. And as society was rigid, it's sort of like what JFK said. Those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable. So as society is not allowed to naturally change and grow and evolve and change and evolve and grow, as society is not allowed to do that because we lock into certain forms, and then everyone has to conform to those forms. As we do that, we it's sort of like an earthquake, that fault line, you know, as the expansion happens and happens and happens and happens, and we don't go. You know, we expand and we expand and we expand from our inner being's perspective, but on the outside we don't go. We stay rigid in our forms. Then at some point something's got to give, and it gives in a big, harsh way. And at the end of it, you know, we rebuild, but we don't rebuild back exactly the way it was. Now we have to incorporate a certain amount of the expansion. And World War I didn't actually complete the process. And that price tag that we hung around the neck of Germany, Hitler felt it really harshly. I mean, I'm not saying that he was he was actually lazy, and I'm not all sorry for him. I'm just saying that in his thoughts and in his emotions, he acutely felt that burden that was hung around the neck of Germany, and he felt its injustice. He wasn't wrong about its injustice. It was unjust. He was wrong about a whole lot of other things. He was wrong about the us versus them paradigm. He was wrong about it being the fault of the Jews. And actually, isn't it funny? If you noticed that Jews had a particular relationship to the banking and financial structures of the world at that time, and where a lot of the wealth was, you have to go back to medieval times when Jews were not allowed to do just any jobs. They were confined by Christian laws because Christians were the ones who, ruled the land. The Pope and the Holy Roman Emperor and the church, the Christian church in Western lands was the boss. And they decreed what Jews could or could not do. And one of the jobs that they were allowed to do, they were allowed to be doctors, and they were allowed to be bankers. They were allowed to be money handlers. And so, and then to criticize them for being money grubbing Jews, or money, I'm gonna Jew you down, or whatever. It's so funny to have done that when they took those roles because that was all they were allowed to do by Christian law. Isn't that funny? And so now you notice that, they're entrenched in the middle of all the financial institutions. Oh my gosh. Outrage. They must be the ones to blame. Well, all of that was wrong. Wrong, and completely out of alignment with what Hitler's inner being knows to be true, because Hitler's inner being is just like all of our inner beings, and actually playing with all of our inner beings, trying to guide him, but he locked into something in his physical mind and went with it, and the symptoms of his behavior should have told the people, don't vote for him because he's out of alignment. But we weren't there yet. I hope and pray someday we get to that place where we never vote somebody in who's out of alignment, where we recognize, that our leaders need to be in alignment with the laws of the universe, with the truth of the matrix, with the way things actually unfold, what brings peace to this world, what a government should be responsible for and not responsible for. Where are we together and where are we individuals? All of that. We need to ask these questions. Who am I and who are we? I'm doing a time hack. I realize that I've been talking for an hour and 12 minutes. Woohoo! That's pretty good, and I haven't done any of my slides. I started to do this one. I was going to tell you what this slide reminded me of. When I was 12, we moved to Nairobi, and I remember, so we used to take our vacations on the Kenyan coast, the coast near Mombasa, and my parents would rent a cottage on the beach, and that cottage didn't have air conditioning. It didn't have windows. It was just open air, sort of kind of like a hard shell tent with running water and electricity. So we had fans that would blow on us. It was awfully hot. I'm surprised we all could deal with such Spartan conditions, but when you're young, you can handle it. It was great adventure. But I remember sitting on the beach and looking out to sea and feeling a yearning in my heart as big as the sea, as big as the full moon, as big as the universe. And I couldn't put a name on what I was longing for, but I could just feel it in my heart. And as my hair, I looked like this. I looked like this. I had long, straight hair down to the middle of my back. And I was quite a bit thinner than I am now. And I remember, and so I saw this picture, and I'm like, oh yeah. Now there wasn't a tree in its fall colors dropping its leaves on me. It wasn't anything like that. And the moon probably wasn't that big. But still, that's why I picked this picture, because it kind of reminds me. I have a set of pictures in this vein. This is the first one. And then I have this one. And then this one. And then this one. And then I have one more that's kind of in the vein, but not quite. I've got it in my mushroom series. And it's this one. But I just love these. I don't know, they're sort of magical, and they make me feel whimsical, you know. This one I call it Magic Child. So anyway, who am I? Who am I, and what am I here for? What am I here for? I'll tell you what you're here for. You're here to recognize the love. You're here to be. You are here to discover and express who you are in this world. And you're important to this world, by the way. Now, I think that our general larger path to sustainability is going to be better achieved. We're going to kick the can down the road. Now, that's probably not the right image, because that implication is we aren't fixing anything. We're just kicking the problem down the road to the next generation. That's not the spirit I mean. We're going to move it to the next step we're going to get out of caterpillar mode and take a step towards our butterfly iteration when we get off fossil fuels and get on to source energy. And I believe that getting off I think the first step in doing that is understanding over unity devices, and then the crown jewel, the big kahuna, the holy grail, if you will, is going to be that solid state connection to source energy itself. And I think that we're getting close to the time when we can be trusted with this. The very fact that there's a jillion wise, everybody is a guru these days. Have you noticed there is wisdom everywhere? Oh my gosh. All over YouTube, there are so many wonderful voices, all saying things that harmonize with the things I'm saying on this show. I'm not saying that I'm the only one saying any of this stuff. I just have my own particular way of pulling it together, my own special way of iterating my fractal piece, my particular echo of the reflective whatever. I don't know, I'm just throwing words around now. My particular way of my fractal iteration of the thing, the way I pull it together in my particular allness. The things I pull together are the law of attraction, and we could talk all day about the law of attraction. Momentum, focus, attention, all of that stuff, thoughts turning to things, the vibrational nature of the universe, the laws, the laws of creation. Step 1, life causes you to ask. Step 2, source answers. Step 3, I have to get into a state of allowing for that to come to me, because things are always working out for me unless I've got that shield up, that umbrella up, to keep to keep me from seeing the well-being that's raining down around me, that kind of stuff. So there's the law of attraction aspect of it, and manifestation and how all of that. Then there's the practical, we need to get off source energy aspect, which is related to the, let's talk about source energy, the origin of mass and nature of gravity and all of that, and what it really is, how it's Planck oscillators. This Planck, this very, very fine ether at the Planck level, and all of these frequencies. Remember, if you want to understand the universe, think in terms of energy, vibration, energy, frequency, and vibration, right? And so what everything actually is these Plancks. And if you see something that looks like matter, it's a lot of Plancks you're looking at. Actually, well, it's all Plancks. Even when you don't see any matter, it's still solid Plancks from what I understand. And where it looks like matter is just where the Plancks are spinning. Actually, the universe, it's hard to, when you see how the math fits the universe together, then you have to sit back and go, as you realize what that means to consciousness and what that means to your own experience and what you're actually experiencing and what the universe might actually be. It's not really, space-time isn't really what you think it is. It's not really what you think it is. But the interesting part about all of that is that the mathematics has been done. And the important part about that is the mathematics is the roadmap to the technology of tomorrow. And so this new way of looking at the universe through mathematics is a new way of developing new technologies, and this will be the roadmap to the real 21st century. The 21st century hasn't even really gotten started yet. Think of it as the 1920s right now, and think of how much farther we had to go then. Boy, you ain't seen nothing yet, because and it is not going to be that apocalyptic, post-apocalyptic hellscape. Or it doesn't need to be. That's not the future I want to find. So, pardon me for just 1 second. I'm going to take a very quick break. Very, very quick break. But the only reason I mention it, because you're not going to hardly see me. I'm going to pause it, and I'm going to come back, and you're going to say, what time went by? But some time is going to go by for me. And so if I seem in a slightly different frame of mind when I come back, I'm going to, I think I'll say a few more things, and then I'll wind up the show. And like I said, I don't think I'm going to be doing a show tomorrow, because I think we're going to go play 9 holes of golf really, really early in the morning. Too early for me to do a show, unless I want to go to bed at 7 o'clock tonight, and I know my husband hates it when I go to bed too early. So hold on a minute. I will be right back. I'm back. Actually, I'm remembering now that I haven't completely finished my little, I was going to do a really, really, really brief circle of my thesis direction. I hadn't quite finished it. I like to bring in the mathematics of the new physics and bring it to the law of attraction and the fourth law, unless it's the third law, unless it's the first law. It's the first law of action. It's the only real law of action. What you put out is what you get back. It's that which is like unto itself is drawn, is the way Abraham puts it. And then I talk about our nature, our physical nature, and how I believe that we are a genetically modified species, which implies so many interesting things about the universe and about the story of humanity. It just implies so many interesting things. And when you recognize, you know, because I think that human chromosome number 2 is a modified chromosome. When you look at it, you're like, oh, okay. It's 2 chromosomes stuck together, telomere to telomere, with redundancies on both sides clipped away that stabilize the fusion, and what it produces is a large volume of our neocortex, which is our overview physical mind. I think it's that little bit of alien technology within us that's, I've heard people say, maybe we have. Well, yeah, alien technology, as in somebody had the genetic wherewithal to genetically modify us. But they used clay that came from Earth. That's how come we absolutely came from Earth. We didn't come from somewhere else. We are from Earth. However, we have been modified. And it makes us different. It makes us need to consciously line up with who we are, because we have a tendency, when the psyche has been traumatized in any way, the human being has the tendency to lock onto a negative frequency and go all conditional, and that completely unplugs you from any impulses from the field around you, and then you're awry. That's what happens to human beings, and we need to get over that. I think the way we get over that is we understand who we are, and then now when you see somebody ornery in front of you, and I mean you ornery, know what you're looking at. Don't judge them. Don't I mean you can discern, but don't judge them. They are not wicked. They are out of alignment. They are lost to themselves. They do not understand their own nature, and they are living out of their own negative self. I have a daughter who, on the one hand, is the most darling, sweet, playful, kind creature that you would ever want to meet. But when any of us act and live our negative self, it's very hurtful and destructive to the people around you. Because what happens is, and you know what, let's be fair. I don't want to disparage anybody, and I'm not disparaging my daughter. She's actually mostly positive these days. But what I'm saying is, if a darling child like her can, when she gets negative and then acts from that negative, it's not nice. It's not nice. We are not nice when we allow our negative selves to drive our vehicle. Do not let your negative self drive your vehicle. Pay attention to your negative self. It is one of the village people. It's one of the people in your internal village, and what they're saying to you is not wrong. They are expressing information to you that in some aspect reflects an accuracy. They're not wrong about something. They're not wrong. Just don't let them drive your car. They are not you. Anyway, when we let our negative selves drive our vehicles, we unleash demonic energy into the world. We unleash Shiva energy into the world. And when you observe it happening, when it happens, when you cross your own energy stream, you create a shadow self. When you act from that energy stream, you bring it into this world. And it's not anything to judge. You know, we all do it. We all do it because we're designed this way. But we need to consciously avoid doing this because it's what creates the evil that we perceive in this world. And the evil isn't exactly evil the way you think that it is, but it's possible that once you give yourself over to it, you feel a pull and a tug, and it feels like there is an energy over there that's dark and evil. I don't know. I'm not going over there. I'm not going over there. I do know that you have control over your own vehicle of light, and I would advise that you line up with your broader perspective vibrational self, and that self is light and love and cooperation and harmony and symphony and synergy and synchronicity and joy and fun and beauty. All of that. Go that way. Go that way. That's the direction you really want. Your overview self knows which way you want. Of course she would know, because she knows everything. Because she's vibrationally in touch with everything, because it's all vibrationally holographic. That vibration is what's carrying all the information of all the universe everywhere. And then in the middle of all that, we have our experience. And you can guide your experience. You can guide your starship anywhere you want to go. That's the piece of control that you have. You don't have control over others. You don't actually have control over the outside manifestation. You have great influence on it. And the higher your degree of alignment with what's really happening, i.e. the information of your inner being, who is vibrationally actually in touch with all that physically is and ever was, when you are in alignment with that, then you have way more influence over the rest of the field. But it's influence. It's not power and control. It's influence. Influence, and then the power to flow your craft into waters that are exceedingly pleasing to you. That's what you have the power to do. You don't really have power banging around from the outside in the way that you think that you do. And you may not realize how powerful is your ability to influence the field around you from that internal place of influence, because you are broadcasting a signal, and the rest of the universe is in motion, and the universe in motion is feeling your signal. And so theoretically, I can just sit here in my small space, doing what I want to do. I go play where I want to play, and I do my little show. And I have my desires, and I don't contradict my desires. I just want what I want. And theoretically, the universe will start coming to me. And frankly, it has started. The things that I want have started showing up at my doorstep. Now we're going to see how broad this thing can go. We're going to take this show, Who Am I, down the years and see who wants to play with me. Who wants to play with me? Who wants to play with me? And we'll see how much fun this play can get. So is that all of what let's just do this really quick. This is my thesis. This isn't my thesis. This particular slide I just changed it to. This was the paper written by Nassim and his team, Cyprian and Olivier. Nassim is the first person on the list, so that's good. This is the full abstract. This is mathematically, they're going to talk to you about where matter is actually coming from, and what this whole structure, this black hole structure, this screening structure of data and information flowing across all the spaces, Everything's black holes. Protons are black holes. Universes are black holes. The Earth is a black hole. Black holes aren't what you think they are. They are vortices of spin in the vacuum fluctuation space-time continuum, whatever. Here we got Hawking radiation at the hadronic scale. We got screening of information. We've got the quantum structure of space-time. Look at how all the Plancks are when these solid packed Plancks go into spin. They create the material world that you see around you. The quantum structure of space-time and all kinds of stuff. So we add all of this mathematical stuff in because it's talking about the field. The field is the medium that we in our physical biology, in our human biology, find ourselves embedded in. That's what we are. That's the medium that we swim in, is this quantum field. And so understanding how it works, how the Plancks work, how they move, what they respond to, what makes matter come into being, this will free us from unsustainability. Our understanding of our true nature in the trueness of the way the physicality unfolds is going to free us from the destructive nature that we find ourselves in at this moment in time. It is going to free us, but we've got to know that this is the direction. This is the way to lean. This is the way to understand ourselves. Source energy, first of all, is going to get us off fossil fuel, and fossil fuel is the whole meaning of the word greenhouse gas. It's the whole meaning of carbon footprint. Take away all fossil fuel use, plug us directly into source, and none of that matters. We have no carbon footprint anymore, or one so light that our unlimited energy supplies can easily, recycle that too. We can intentionally re-garden planet Earth, but we've got to see ourselves as the bigger frame that we really are. We are in a bigger frame. Each and every one of us in our small frame actually abides in a bigger frame that your inner being knows full well and wants to help you play with it. Play with it. Play with it. We're dreaming this into place, people. It is not nearly as serious as you think it is. And if you get all serious about it, then the mirror frowns at you. Because it's a big mirror. And you can't, just like a mirror, you can't walk over to the mirror and force it to smile. It's a reflection. You've got to smile yourself. You've got to find your own joy, your own mechanism of joy, the way your equipment works and who you are in this great universe, who you are in your divine individuation, your divine autonomy. Your divine autonomy to call your own shots and to stabilize your own emotions and to fly your starship wherever you want to go. Get into clear alignment with your inner being and then just do what you want to do. The world is aching for you to do that. How do you do that? How do you do that? Care about how you feel. Don't be so willing to go negative. And when you go negative, stop, sit on your hands and think about it. Just let it pass. Let it pass. Think it all through. Think it through. Know that the negative self is not who you are. It's not who you are. And do your fellow human beings a favor. When they present to you their negative self, don't see it as who they are. It is not who they are. Only the love is real. Only the love is real. That's what A Course in Miracles tells us, and they are absolutely correct. Only the love is real. So no matter who is standing in front of you, and if it doesn't look like love, you know that it is in fierce misalignment, and that human being in the middle of that is misunderstanding their guidance system and plowing forth anyway in their negative self. They might even be thinking that they're righting a great wrong out there. But in their holding that negative energy and using it to drive their vehicle, they are bringing that negative energy into the world, and they are doing as much, at least as much, if not more harm than good. However, there is value everywhere. And even that, which is in a way, even running in absolutely the opposite direction of what you want to go as fast as you can, even that has value, because like I can look back on the debacle of last century, and I can see in my consciousness very, 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 very clearly the illustration, what that lesson was all about. And I promise you, we do not need to play that out fully again. We don't need to do that. There it is, big as life, as far as an illustration of, and it's so raw, so raw. Of course I'm talking about Nazi Germany and its illustration of who we are. And I'm not saying we're monsters. I'm saying we are beings that need to be in alignment with our inner being. We are binary sets of information that have to harmonize. And when they don't harmonize, then you are in negative emotion. And Hitler was constantly in negative emotion. His whole scenario of the meaning of the world and life came from his negative mind spinning that out. And of course, because of that, he was incredibly, breathtakingly wrong. And as such, he led all the world to its absolute destruction. And the good part about that was that it smashed a lot of the institutions of rigid, inflexible order that were in place before those wars, and opened it up to the world that we see today. We wouldn't see the world today had we not opened it up a bit. Through all of the troubles that we have had, all of the step one is opening us up. The pandemic was a kind of world war that opened us up a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. We are in process, people. We are the caterpillar, and we are moving to the butterfly stage. We are up-leveling. We really are. It doesn't always look like that from the outside, but you gotta know it from the inside. Know it, feel it. Ask yourself the question, who am I? Who am I? And see what kind of answers roll back to you. The possibilities are endless. So, what have I left unsaid? I keep starting certain things. I've ended with this one, I like this one because it shows as those Planck oscillators go from stochastic, I think that's the word, random, like just jiggling, into coherence, as in they become matter. They come across the event horizon of the 0-point energy field from just oscillating into matter. The way that happens is they go into spin. It's spin. It's all spin. And to understand that spin is fundamental to matter will help us conquer gravity. That's another one of the things that I want. So what I want for humanity, I want big things, and I don't think that it matters how big. Abraham says it's as easy to create a castle as a button. You just have to keep your eye on what you're creating. Don't counter it with negative emotion. Don't counter it with negative thoughts or naysaying. Just focus on what you want and just walk that direction. And what do I want? I want humanity on a sustainable path. I want clean, free energy for everyone, everywhere. I want us to more fully understand who we are through me, beginning with me understanding who I am, right? I'm not just out there wanting all of you to understand, it's me. I'm trying to work my own life too. I have children that are all over the place. I have a spouse that, isn't always or doesn't always do every single thing I would love, hope and dream that they do. And isn't it wonderful that the people around you are not controllable? Because it's not your job to control them. It's only your job to chart your own path. That's the only thing that you are you are mandated to do. It's your responsibility to call the to chart the course of your own ship. That's the one thing that you you have to do that, and charting other people's ships is none of your damn business. And yet, the ones that you love, they affect you, don't they? Because they have resources or they don't have resources, and if they don't have resources and you love them and you don't want to see them living under a bridge, sometimes you have to help them. And so wouldn't it be wonderful if they understood these things too and could very gently just flow into their own experience, flow into at least their own, have their physical mind and their vibrational mind in alignment such that their own physical needs are being cared for to the level that they need. So like if they have extravagant taste, then they need to have extravagant abilities to manifest wealth. And if they have modest desires and they just want, a good homey experience and loving relationship, to whatever degree that they want, so I want them to be living within their own means, whatever that is, big or small. And when they don't, and I care about them, so now it becomes part of my vested interest to teach the rest of the world something that I have come to understand about how to get by in it, big or small. Now, I'd like to get a little bigger, but I want to stay small as I do it. So that's my path. We'll see where that leads me. Anyway, is there anything I have left out? The emotional guidance system. We did talk about the us being potentially genetically modified, and where my evidence for that is. This is a piece of the evidence. The other evidence is just the way we are. How isn't it odd? Don't you think it's odd that as a species, if we developed incrementally through incremental Darwinian evolutionary processes over eons and eons of time, if that's the way we developed who we are, then why don't we know how to be? Why don't we have a long, 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 long history of knowing who we are? Why is it such a tricky thing? Well, I think it's because we're genetically modified. Somebody leapfrogged us. And so now it's absolutely necessary. We have to have culture. We need our culture to tell us how to act, because we don't know how to plug into our source anymore. It's our neocortex that gives birth to both the positive and negative mind. You have this place where you could stay in a negative energy and then spin out thought as you look at the world. Isn't that crazy? The other animals, they can't do that. They feel a positive or negative impulses coming from the environment around them, and they blend and they flow with, and they feel their source energy, and they don't question it, they don't double think it, they just so anyway, who am I? Who am I? A worthy question, and a question that we will continue to ask day after day after day, although like I said, I think I'm skipping tomorrow. So I'll see you first thing Tuesday morning, that will be August the 5th. No, it won't be. It will be August the 6th. Anyway, as always, I love you. I appreciate you being in my audience. I appreciate you hearing my words and feeling my thoughts. I love doing this show, and it wouldn't mean nearly as much if there were no ears out there hearing me. I don't know why that is. It's because we're all one. We're all in this together. And in that service, I will be back day after tomorrow. So do the best that you can. Know that you have a source self walking with you always. And you make sure that you are walking with her. And so until next time, may the source be with you.